Welcome to the Athlon U College Football Podcast from Athlon Sports. My name is Braden Gall. Follow me on the internet at Braden Gall.
And I'm Stephen Lassan. You can read all my work at athlonsports.com and follow me, just like Braden, everywhere on the internet.
And they can see your podcast where, Stephen?
You can go to YouTube and go to the Athlon U YouTube page and give us a like. You can also subscribe, tell all your friends, tell your family, and smash that subscribe, smash the like button, share the show. We always appreciate it.
And if you are listening on a podcast app of choice, please give us 5 stars, because if you do not give us 5 stars, you are a
hater.
It's better.
You're a tough judge. Like, I'm never going to be able to meet your standard.
It's part of the shtick. It's part of the shtick now. You got to learn to put less dad stank on it and a little bit more like group of 5 North Texas defense kind of stank on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess being a dad now for over a year has kind of like changed my whole thing.
Oh yeah. It makes all of us incredibly lame instantaneously. Yeah. If we weren't already lame to begin with. Of course, today on the show, we will dive into our favorite thing that we saw from week number 4? What did we just see? Week number 4.
We saw 4. Yeah, this is fine. It's going fast, isn't it?
So fast. It's so fast. It always is. It's always so fast. Especially when you get to like week 7, you're like, oh my God, we're more than halfway through most teams' schedules. Anyway, obviously, Oklahoma State has made a big move. Mike Gundy, after 21 seasons, will no longer be the head coach at Oklahoma State. It's just the latest in a bunch of changes that have already happened. 3 Power 4 jobs are now open, and a bunch more could be coming. So we'll take a temperature check on some hot seats around the country, and I got to celebrate how absolutely incredibly wrong I was, which is one of my favorite parts of college football. Fascinating AAC race shaping up after a big week 4 and the group of 5 race to the playoff. We've got the moment we joked about it at the end of the show last week about how Memphis was probably the only team on the schedule that had a moment opportunity. If you do not know what we're talking about, ask somebody, because the moment has been a debate on this, whatever you called this show, for basically the last 13 years. We've joked about the moment. So we got a lot of moment in play this weekend in week number 5, and some huge showdowns to get to as well. And we're both doing below average in our picks against the spread.
I think we need to put ourselves on the hot seat, much like Sam Pittman, Luke Fickell, and all the others that had a terrible week 4.
Thanks a lot, R. Mason Thomas. I do appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks, Buffalo, for totally botching a 17-0 lead in the second half.
L. Mason Thomas is what I took over the weekend. All right. Our favorite thing this weekend was what, Stephen Lassan?
Braden, if you stayed up late Saturday night, you might have saw my favorite thing from week 4, which was Ralphie 7. So Ralphie 6 was, not, I guess, enthusiastic enough about running the field at Colorado in Boulder, but Ralphie 7 made her debut on Saturday night, and what a glorious run it was. Seeing Ralphie in Colorado is one of my favorite entrances of college football. Kind of gets at sort of like what makes college football awesome is to see the return of Ralphie. She ran around the field, went back as expected. So good to see the return of Ralphie as Colorado beat Wyoming on Saturday night.
So Ralphie is a girl?
Yes, okay. Ralphie is a girl. Ralphie 7 is the new Ralphie for Colorado.
I'm just playing. I love big, live, real mascots. Even though that stupid Bevo commercial happens way too many times on Saturday, it is fun to watch Bevo break loose into the booster hallways and have everybody fall off their chair. Any large, massive, real life mammal or animal as a mascot is just a fantastic look on a college football sideline, because that's the only place you could do that. You can't do that anywhere else in football. You can't do that in high school or the NFL. Only in college football can you have a 1,000-pound animal roaming the sideline of your football game. It's fantastic.
Now I'm just thinking about the week 2 NFL game where the Bengals and Jaguars played, and how we needed to have Bengals and Tigers and Jaguars out there in the sidelines, right?
Oh my! My speaking of the sidelines, my favorite thing I saw this weekend: Trent Dilfer on his cell phone as the game is kicking off.
It's like a tourist out there.
Now, I don't want to make a huge deal out of this, because I don't think it's an actual big deal, but it is so apropos as a Nashvilleian who was around Trent Dilfer kind of coming up in the coaching ranks, and then seeing how he got the UAB job and how the program has gone since he's been there, to see him on the sidelines at Neyland Stadium as the game is kicking off, texting or reading, or maybe he's doom scrolling on TikTok. I don't know, but he is on his cell phone now. His excuse, or his reason, I should say, according to Trent Dilfer, was that his daughter is about to go into labor and that he always FaceTimes or sends a picture. To which I said, you had 6 hours at the stadium, or 5 hours, or 4 hours at the stadium before that exact moment on the sidelines where you need to be paying attention to your team. Now, again, is this a big deal? Absolutely not. That is why it's my favorite thing, because it is not a big deal. It doesn't have any impact on the game. I'm not going to kill the guy. It's just such a weird picture to see because it immediately hit the internet, and immediately people are making jokes about this. And I'm going to say this, allegedly. I don't agree. I don't believe anything that he said about that. I'm sure that he keeps his phone on him. If his daughter's about to give birth, you got to keep your phone on you. But you know this as a father. If you are going into a situation, like, he's not going to leave in the middle of the game to go be with his family for the birth of a grandchild. Now, unless that was the agreement, otherwise you wouldn't really actually need to keep your phone on you. because that for that 3 hours, or I guess it's like 4.5 now in college football, you wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
if you're committing to being at the football game to coach the team, then it almost doesn't matter if it happens. You'll figure it out afterward. You know what I'm saying? I mean, unless it's an emergency, I guess. So I'm not trying to be callous here, but like, that was my favorite thing.
So UAB lost to Tennessee pretty bad, right?
Oh, sure. I think so.
We're talking, right. This is it. What are we talking about? We're talking about Dilfer and his sideline thing. We're not talking about how bad their defense has been for the third year in a row there.
No, what we should be talking about is aggravated assault on a kicker. That's what we should be talking about, where some UAB player just decides to stomp on the guy.
I mean, adding to his misery after missing the field goal against Georgia. I mean,
I just felt bad. I was like,
I know.
I was like, oh man. I had a fellow buddy of mine who was a kicker in college, actually, college football kicker, in the Big Ten school. And he and our daughters are very, very close friends here in Nashville. And he comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, I just tried I just tried 8 field goals from 45 yards. I made 7 of them. You think I could have made that kick?" I mean, he's in his 40s. And I was like, 45 yards? Like, you put the ball down on the 35-yard line? He's like, yeah. He goes, you think I could have made that kick? I'm like, the Max Gilbert missed? He's like, yeah. I was like, I don't think so. I don't think you can make it.
I mean,
too much pressure.
Too much. I said, a little different situation when you're just doing it out by yourself, as opposed to having a Georgia defense ready to block the kick.
So my actual favorite part of the weekend, and we'll get to this, was just how absolutely, incredibly, astonishingly wrong I was about every major football game that took place, whether it's Utah or Clemson or Illinois or Nebraska. Just completely wrong. And that's actually my favorite part of the weekend. But Trent Dilfer on his cell phone and really just the picture on the internet is what makes it look so good, because he's just like, he looks like an entire generation of young people just staring at his phone while like the coolest thing around him is happening.
Trent Dilfer quiet quitting UAB's head coach. I mean, to be honest, they're not a very well coached team. So it's not
Trent Dilfer, Gen Alpha.
Maybe he thought he was going to get fired on Sunday, so he was just taking a last look around the stadium as his final time as to be coach.
There is no real explanation. So
it's no. God, it is surprising to me that he has lasted this long as the head coach at UAB. And so when you continue to see them losing like this in situations, you just wonder how much longer he's going to be there.
Nobody really wants to say this out loud, so I'll do it because I'm an idiot. The only real reason you do that is to get a last one in on the app. Just get a last bet in. Minus 43.5. I'll take the points.
So was he doing the whole, like, was it the Colts after the game on Sunday against the Titans said, we saw the Titans ready. They didn't look like they were ready to play. So maybe he thought, man, my guys don't look ready to play. I better
or maybe it was Tennessee's players like, well, we looked over at the head coach before in the preseason, in the warm-ups, and he didn't look like he was interested in the football game.
Right.
All right, we've already milked this for all it's worth. It was fantastic though. All right, let's get to Mike Gundy. Fired, removed, 1-11 in his last 12 football games after 9 straight losses last year. Mike Gundy, of course, 21 seasons, 170 wins. I think that's 100 more than the next winningest coach in Oklahoma State history. 170-90 overall is his record. 102 Big 12 wins, 72 Big 12 losses. Only 4-15, of course, in the Bedlam Series, the most important game of the year for the Pokes. However, 8 of the school's 11 total double-digit win seasons. Obviously, the 2011 Big 12 championship, where they almost got into the 14 playoff, almost got into the BCS championship game. That was the LSU Alabama rematch that led to the playoff. So you can thank Oklahoma State for not beating Iowa State in that game for how fast we got a playoff. And then, of course, I think the Big 12 championship game in 2023, where they lose to Texas. Texas goes on to make a playoff run there. And then since that moment, it's kind of been pretty downhill. So I think the writing was on the wall. This is clearly, you lose to Tulsa at home against old players from your team. And that is probably the bottom. And they hit the bottom, and a couple days later, Mike Gundy is out. It's a good job. I don't know how great of a job it is, but it's a good job. And I think there'll be some good candidates for this particular job.
I think they will have a lot of interested candidates, and I think this is one of the better jobs potentially in the Big 12. I mean, all these Big 12 jobs are kind of clustered together, but with a lot of the resources they pulled into the program, I think there's a lot there for the next coach. You said something a couple shows ago about the ending for coaches, and I thought about that while I was watching the game on Friday night. Like, it's been clear the program has been going in the wrong direction. And the hardest, I think, when I was watching that game, there wasn't a whole lot of difference between the Tulsa roster and the Oklahoma State roster. And granted, this, in Gundy's defense, they lost their starting quarterback in the opener, but they overhauled the roster and the staff this offseason. And the fact that Tulsa, which was pretty bad last year, just went into Stillwater, and I couldn't tell the difference of who was a power conference team and who was the American team, says a lot about where this program had fallen. And I thought about the ending and thought about, this is a guy who was an Oklahoma State legend as a player, as a coach. He took him to the doorstep of being in the playoff, potentially playing for the BCS, all the success that he's had. And here he is, fired on Tuesday, not Sunday, which you normally would see, but he did his press conference for the Baylor game, and they fired him on Tuesday. So the exit for all of these coaches, no matter, almost like all of them, their tenures end up here. So it's not surprising to me that Gundy was fired. It's been trending in this direction since last season. The program has clearly been on a downhill slide. And I'll be very interested to see who they get. And I think one of the reasons is going to be the alignment, like making sure that everybody is president, AD, everybody at the program is going to have to be aligned with this hire. And that was a concern earlier this offseason, even last year.
I mean, it's rarely graceful. It's rarely on your own terms. I think there's a handful of guys that kind of got a chance to do that. Barry Alvarez might have been one, went out on top. Saban, is a guy that kind of went out on top. But even championship coaches, Les Miles, Coach O, Urban Meyer, end up with, really, really weird endings. And I don't know if Gundy would have said to the administration, hey, as we talked about on the show a couple of weeks ago, I will announce my resignation at the end of the year, take my victory lap because he deserves it, and celebrate kind of every stop along the way, like how you do. And that's kind of the only graceful way to do it. And then behind the scenes, your athletic director can be doing all kinds of work on who to hire. And so I don't know if that would have changed. I also am of the belief, and I think it's fair to assume that Mike Gundy said no to that. And said, you're going to have to fire me, give me my $15 million buyout, and you're going to have to get rid of me now because I ain't doing this farewell tour because I don't want to quit. And that, to me, seems way more on brand for Mike Gundy.
I think there could be something to that, especially since he did go through with the press conference on Monday and basically said that he's got a contract and I'm going to be here and I have no intention. So to me, that defiance may have sped up the process of the firing on Tuesday. So do you have a candidate you think would make a lot of sense here? Because I got some names.
Just purely out of like total appreciation and love of irony, former Tulsa quarterback G.J. Kinney. Texas State head football coach. What was interesting is I don't think he's got, I'll throw some names at you and then you can give me some names too. I don't think there's like a large Gundy coaching tree of either former players or coaches. And I haven't fully fleshed that out. It's kind of like a half-baked idea. So I want to maybe spend some time with that as we kind of deal with the search here. But like I've seen Zach Robinson named, the Atlanta Falcons offensive coordinator, former quarterback there. But like he really, for a guy for 21 years at a proud program, there's really not a lot of like former assistants who developed into guys or play. Like, am I wrong on that, or am I just or is that just half baked?
I think there are some guys like a Dana Holgerson, but he's been a coach and he's been fired now. Todd Monken would be another one, but he's also bounced around. But was it also like? I mean, I think that there's nobody.
He's not leaving the NFL either. So
right, like there's guys like Doug Meacham who've been a pretty solid coordinator, but like there's nobody that you could just point to and say like they go get him. He fills in. To your point, though, I think GJ Kinney would make a ton of sense for this job. I think anybody that's got like ties to Texas, kind of got offensive background, I think fits well. Alex Golish spent a little bit of time at Oklahoma State. I think he's probably going to be in high demand for other jobs too. Sure. I would also look at guys like Colin Klein, offensive coordinator at Texas A&M. I think Jeff Traylor, the head coach at UTSA, makes a ton of sense.
Will Stein an option or coordinator at Oregon?
Yeah, I think Will Stein should be on the radar for several jobs this offseason. Yeah. And I'll throw you mentioned Zach Robinson. I think he should absolutely be on the radar just because the ties to the school. I will say he is in the news. The Falcons offense is look very good against the Panthers. And so I don't know if that will have an impact on it, but I could certainly see that his name will pop up in this search.
Texas guy, offense is hot as heck right now. What about Ben Arbuckle?
Yes, I think he is on the radar. No previous head coaching experience, but I think offense plays well in the Big 12. A certain Eric Morris would be another one too. North Texas head coach, guy who's developed quarterbacks. He's from Texas, played at Texas Tech. He knows the Big 12. And this kind of gets at what I was kind of getting at earlier, which is it feels like Oklahoma State has a really solid candidate pool. If we're talking about Colin Klein, TJ Kinney, Eric Morris, Jeff Traylor, you're talking about successful G5 coaches or coordinators who would be a really nice addition to Oklahoma State and the Big 12.
Virginia Tech, UCLA, and Oklahoma State is a fascinating group of schools to all be open at the same time in 2025, because Virginia Tech is probably the best job, but the ACC might be the worst situation. Oklahoma State might be the best program in the conference. And to your point, we've seen how good they can do and how good they can't. But like, the long-term upside is limited because I don't know if they get invited into sort of the Big Ten or the SEC. UCLA is in the most financially secure and stable situation and has, strangely, ironically, no money. So it's just but all three are like big programs, and all three have an opportunity to hire somebody. Now that leads us to what could the carousel look like writ large that could impact some of this stuff. I've already fielded a lot of questions about Eli Drinkwitz for the Florida job. I've had a lot of conversations around the Virginia Tech job with some friends of mine, and there's a lot of like, I don't want one of these old school program builders that like you and I talked about last week on the show, which is like Willie Fritz and Lance Leipold and Kirk Cignetti's not going to take the job. He's not interested, especially not after last weekend. And so I'm fascinated to see what types of candidates each of these jobs attract. I could see Oklahoma State getting the quote unquote best candidate of the group because they have short-term stability, and sort of like they could be one of the best programs in the league if all things go right. So I agree with you. I think they're going to have a good pool. What about Sam Pittman at Arkansas? Where would that job rank in this conversation? Because after losing at home to Memphis and being outrushed on the ground, that is a bad look. Good Memphis team, but a bad look. Billy Napier and Florida's offense looked absolutely inept. 60-plus passing yards for DJ Lagway against Miami. Just a brutal showing in that one. And then Luke Fickell, oh my God. Wisconsin is so bad at football. Like, it is brutal. Wisconsin the best job of all of those? I mean, Florida probably is the best. I take it back. Florida's the best job. Is Wisconsin the second best job of all of those because of its Big Ten stability and the Madison and all that other stuff? Like, how would you rank all these jobs?
I think Florida, no doubt about it, assuming it comes open, and I think we believe it will at this point. Yes, I think Florida's the best job. I would go Wisconsin too. I think what's interesting about this conversation, though, is think about Arkansas, Wisconsin, Virginia Tech, Oklahoma State. They're all probably like 20 to 30 nationally. There's a lot of it's kind of
a lot of similarities. A lot of
similarities. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, is Arkansas, would I rather coach at Arkansas or Oklahoma State? Like, I could kind of make a case.
You're taking SEC money every time.
I think so. Yeah. But I think there is an argument about Oklahoma State to where the same argument we talk about with the Big 12. The right coach could come in, you get the right alignment, NIL, everything hits. All of a sudden,
Arkansas is a better job than Oklahoma State.
No question. I would rather be at Arkansas. But you are beating.
So is Wisconsin.
Right. No doubt about it. I mean, we can talk. I know Fickell hasn't been fired yet, but I think there's a very obvious candidate for Wisconsin who currently coaches in the Big 12 who would probably love to have the Wisconsin job. So I think that the interesting thing too about the carousel is there's going to be this second wave of movement. Like, we already have these moves. I assume Florida's going to open. Same thing for Arkansas. But what about the guys that are looking to move up? And so you've mentioned Drinkwitz, Lane Kiffin at Florida. I think is going to get a lot of run. So
I think Drinkwitz is the guy at Florida.
I would, if I'm hiring at Florida, I would hire Kiffin over Drinkwitz.
I don't think he's taking the job, is what I'm saying.
Right. No, I'm saying if all things are equal, it's Kiffin to me. But
right. What I'm saying is I think Drinkwitz gets the job because Kiffin says no. I think the name to watch is James Franklin.
Yeah.
I think that's the name to watch, because if this Penn State thing runs its course this year, and with the talent that they have and the opportunity that they have, and it still doesn't get done this season, and I mean the national championship, or at least getting to the game, I could see him absolutely being like, Florida's just a little bit more powerful with a little bit more access to talent. I'm not saying it's for you Penn State fans, you love Penn State just as much as Florida fan loves Florida. I'm not suggesting that y'all think that one is better than the other, but I could see him being like, no, I'm going to go back down south, and I'm going to go back into the SEC where I've had success, and I'm going to try to do it at a program that has had far more championship success over the last 25 years than Penn State has, with multiple coaches, or 30 years even, and multiple national championships with different coaches. So I don't know. I think James Franklin could be very much in play. Pull a Lincoln Riley kind of thing, like he did from Oklahoma.
I think it's almost as simple as it's not, if it doesn't happen for Penn State this year, Franklin could reload, but you're looking like this might be the best shot in the next 2 to 3 years. And so if you fall short, of course, we're going to talk again, like, well, Penn State's, they fell short. Can James Franklin get over the hump? Well, he could just go to Florida, get another contract, start the clock over again, and he gets 5 to 6 years to build that program in the way he wants it to. Also, I do think, there's several candidates make sense here. I mean, Jed Fish is a Florida guy. It wouldn't surprise me if his name pops up here too. I think the thing about this is, like, it almost seems like somebody who can generate points and offense, because I think Florida, I think Spurrier, I think Fun and Gun, I think Urban Meyer. Like, I don't think they're going to go hire somebody who can try to like win games in the 1990s with the way Napier is playing right now. So to your point on Drinkwitz, like Drinkwitz, Kiffin, somebody who can put together an exciting offense and take advantage of the skill talent quarterbacks that the state of Florida produces is probably going to be very high in the list.
So I wonder if there's a guy out there who is like a former assistant at Florida, who's a brilliant offensive mind, who's got head coaching experience in the SEC, that might be available at a Group of 5 school, like Dan Mullen. Like, you cannot create a resume for the Florida job outside of the fact that he's been fired from Florida.
Right.
You cannot create a better resume for the Florida job than Dan Mullen's resume right now.
I mean, I think Florida's offense would be a heck of a lot better with Dan Mullen calling plays this year.
So my Virginia Tech buddy is obsessed with Dan Mullen, and I'm like, why do you hate Willie Fritz? He's like, he's so old. He was 4-8 last year, and I was like, Willie Fritz is a great football coach. Where would you, if you had to go, Willie Fritz or Dan Mullen at Virginia Tech, who would you hire?
I would hire Willie Fritz.
Yeah,
I don't think he's David Houston though. But
no, Matt Campbell or Dan Mullen.
Matt Campbell.
Lance Leipold or Dan Mullen?
Oh, Leipold, yeah. These are good coaches, though.
Kirk Cignetti or Dan Mullen?
Cignetti.
I think all 5 of these guys are all like in the same group. Like, you got to make all of them say no. You got to call those guys.
Yeah, I mean, it is funny to start to see some of the chatter on message boards about coaching searches, and it's like Florida. It's like, we got to make Urban say no. We got to make Nick Saban say no. Then they'll work their way down to Cignetti. It's like
make Dan Lanning say no. That's fair. That's fine.
Yeah, okay, you can make Dan Lanning say no,
Shane
yeah.
Beamer or Matt Campbell at Virginia Tech.
Matt Campbell.
Shane Beamer or Willie Fritz.
Willie Fritz, yeah.
Over Shane Beamer. Shane Beamer or the other two, Cignetti or Leipold?
I would take Cignetti or Leipold over Beamer.
Wow.
Now,
okay.
That doesn't mean that I think Beamer's a bad coach. I think he's done a great job at South Carolina. I think all these coaches would be like 10 through 25, maybe in my power rankings. Also, maybe there is like a program discount here. Essentially, like Beamer knows this program. There could be something.
This is exclusively like about one thing and one thing only, and that's his, like, did he grow up all his entire life when he had the plastic headset on in his backyard on the deck and all his buddies are running plays and he's calling the plays and coaching it up? Did he dream about being the Virginia Tech head coach, or does he dream today as an adult to carve his own path? And that's it. That's all it is. I do think Beamer, people are going to ask about Beamer for Florida, though, if that comes open. I think I think Drinkwitz is the guy they end up with. I think they try the big names, Lanning, Franklin, maybe Kiffin, and I think they end up going after. I think Eli Drinkwitz is going to be the top target at Florida. And I think this is a weird thing to say. I think he has enough I don't know what the right word is. It's not like snark and it's not like goober, but it's like he's got just enough of like this weird thing that you have to be good at Florida. And I think he's got just the right amount of it. Like, he's kind of snarky, kind of a smart ass, kind of a troll, a little bit of Spurrier to his game.
He's a lot of Spurrier to it. Yeah.
I think he just has the right things that fit at Florida. So I think Drinkwitz is going to end up. I think Drinkwitz is at Florida. I think that's my very early prediction before they even fire Billy Napier.
I hesitate to say this because I thought it was last year. It does feel like we're nearing the end of this. I mean, the offense has been pathetic, and you can go down the line for Florida. They got outplayed in the trenches against Miami, but it's also like they have DJ Lagway, one of the most talented quarterbacks in the country. Jaden Baugh's one of the best running backs in the SEC. Offensive line supposed to be good. There's only two reasons why the offense hasn't lived up to the hype, and that's Lagway, rusty, maybe he's hurt, or the play caller and Billy Napier. By the way, worth noting, Eli Drinkwitz is making $9 million a season at Missouri. He's got a good thing going there. Yeah. I agree with you. He would be on their short list, though.
But by the way, Luke Fickell's buyout, $25 million, would be the largest in Big Ten history, and I think the second largest in college football history. Just want to point that out. So,
how much trouble do you think he's in?
I think he's in deep trouble, but I don't know if the buyout might be prohibitive, the way Billy Napier's kind of was last year. But they are so bad. They're so bad. Like, I think they had 3 negative 15-yard plays in a game. You know how hard that is to do?
That's pretty hard, especially against Maryland. A team
when you go to websites, you go to websites and you're like, oh, 20-yard plays, explosive plays on offense, 10-yard plays, 20-yard plays, 30-yard plays, 40-yard plays. I've never seen it the other direction. -10, -20, -30. But you needed that stat for Wisconsin last week as a 10-point favorite at home against Maryland. Pathetic.
So, Barry Alvarez had some interesting comments on Monday night. He said the fans' reaction to Wisconsin's loss against Maryland was embarrassing. Also, that he kind of slammed the fans, basically they were spoiled rotten.
Well, it's your fault, Barry.
So Barry's just trying to nudge in there for that interim coach gig at some point this year.
He's going like full Phil Fulmer, just stab him right in the back. I wonder. I think that's a really good job. And you mentioned Leipold, of course, multiple national championships at UW-Whitewater, so he's an obvious candidate. I don't know if they go after him because they're not that smart, I don't think. But I wonder about their money situation. Like, they've always kind of danced around the subject in Madison that they don't have as much money as you would think they do. But I would hope that they do, because they're a Big Ten program with a lot of enrollment and a lot of boosters and a lot of donors and a lot of alumni and a proud program with lots of wins in the last 30 years. Like, I don't know. All I know is that I've got a diehard Wisconsin fan in my family that is real upset.
I think the hard part I guess we should say this. When Fickell was hired at Wisconsin, it seemed like a slam dunk A+ hire. Everything about it worked. He's been a Midwest guy. He played in the Big Ten.
Huge pull.
Yeah, I mean, coached in the Big Ten, and he did great at Cincinnati. It seemed like it would work. I think his biggest mistake, though, from the jump was when he hired Phil Longo as his offensive coordinator, and it didn't work out. And he's kind of been caught between this, like, we got to modernize the offense, but this is what's worked for Wisconsin in the past. So I think Longo might have worked in some different way, but they're kind of caught because they couldn't commit to it. They've had quarterback injuries, so there's been some bad luck. But I think that's kind of why I think Leipold makes a lot of sense there. If the job opens, he just gets kind of back. Would be a very popular hire and kind of get back to what Wisconsin would do.
I think that's what they should do, which is why you can kind of wait, because he's not. If you get back channel to his agent and you say, "Hey, look, we'd like to offer you the job at the end of the year, but we got to go through some motions here," and he has the idea, like, he's not going to rush. He's not going to pass up the Wisconsin job. So, all right, quickly, a couple pieces of news before we dive into just how wrong we were. ACC has okayed 9 conference games in all 4 leagues next year. We'll be on the 9-game conference slate, and the SEC has set on the 3 and 6, which this giant nerd has been doing on spreadsheets for like 2 years because it's so much fun to do, and I am a loser. I think they did a pretty good job in the SEC of picking out the right rivalries. I think you could probably pick and choose a couple spots where you're like, as a Tennessee alumni, do I wish Florida was on the schedule every year instead of Kentucky? Yes, I do. I think that would have been much better. I think A&M, I would like to know what you think about this. I think A&M, Arkansas, and Kentucky might have the toughest collection of teams. Georgia's is not easy either. Texas A&M will go Texas, LSU, and Missouri. And Missouri being your worst, quote-unquote, easiest game is pretty good. Arkansas's got to go Texas, LSU, and Missouri. Missouri, again, being the quote-unquote easiest game there for Arkansas. I think Oklahoma kind of lucked out a little bit because they get Missouri and Ole Miss. The Ole Miss-Oklahoma game is the kind of the glaring new rivalry that could have been different. I think they could have done Alabama and Oklahoma instead, and that would have been maybe more fair. Because Ole Miss is not generally considered, I know they're good right now, but they're not generally considered on the same level as Oklahoma. So Oklahoma gets Texas, but then they get Ole Miss and Missouri, that traditionally 2 teams they would dominate over the course of most chunks of time. Kentucky has to go Florida, Tennessee, and South Carolina. If you want to, follow along somewhere else, you can. But I think Arkansas, A&M are probably the toughest ones of anyone out there. But I think by and large, most all the rivalries were maintained outside of Tennessee, Florida, and pretty obvious, pretty well done. And, I'm looking forward to that 3 and 6, which guarantees you 2 games with every team in a 16-team league over a 7-year span, if you followed anything I just said.
No, I think what you're getting at is there's, some of these annual opponents. And I think the thing to keep in mind is they're not permanent. They're going to look at these in a couple years. Now, of course, Alabama, Auburn, Texas A&M, Texas, Oklahoma, they're going to be played. But maybe some of the ones on the edge, like Oklahoma and Ole Miss, are swapped around. That was one that kind of stood out, Oklahoma and Ole Miss.
Cool game, though.
Yeah, great. First of all, great trip if you're an Oklahoma fan to be able to go to the Grove and Ole Miss. LSU, Alabama has been a great series in the SEC West.
Yeah,
I think you could quibble with some of these selections, but I also think it's worth keeping in mind that they're going to rotate through these teams faster than we've seen. So the fact that every 2 years you're going to cycle over the new locations, new opponents, they're going to change it up if the strength of schedule is too hard. Looking at competitive balance is important. So I think if you have a harder annual opponents, your schedule might kind of reflect that. And if it's easier in the annual, it'll be a little bit harder. So sure. I think the SEC got it right with this. You could maybe disagree here and there, but this looks pretty good to me.
I love that A&M and LSU are still on a schedule together. I think that I-10 rivalry is way deeper and more meaningful than anyone sort of outside of the region kind of realizes. All right, let's get into why. I just got to apologize, but also I don't really care because it was so much fun. I turned on the TV because I had youth sports all day. I turned on the TV and I was like, Clemson is down by what?
Yeah.
And then watched the end, and Clemson just wasn't better. That's what's crazy. Syracuse, even with a backup quarterback, and obviously Hope Angeli is fine, but Syracuse was just straight up the better football team. They just straight up beat them. And this vaunted defensive line, they have not been good at any point really during the year, or at least up to their standards. Utah and Illinois, they have something in common, which is they just got slapped around on the line of scrimmage. Like just Texas Tech money versus this fake Utah line of scrimmage toughness that now is not the case anymore after last year and this year so far. Texas Tech, unbelievable. Bailey and the other defensive end who now is, I'm drawing a blank on.
Romello Height.
Yeah. Those two guys were all over. Like those two offensive linemen that are supposed to go pro in the draft. No thanks. And then Illinois, and I know there were some rumors around the Duke game. If you watched it, Duke was much closer than the score indicated. We kind of said that. And we know Indiana plays behind the line of scrimmage on defense, but my God, those two teams completely destroyed along the line of scrimmage. Nebraska now 4-11 in one-score games under Matt Rule, not Scott Frost, which is crazy. So someone needs to sacrifice a cow or something out there and bathe themselves in like goat blood or something, like to get the curse of whatever's in Nebraska out of there. They weren't even as close as the score indicated. Michigan was straight up the better team there too. So Florida destroyed by Miami. Like these were ugly performances by a lot of teams that you and I, mostly me, thought were good in the preseason, but I thought we're going to play well in these games. I was so wrong. I love being wrong because it's fun, but like, man, that was bad.
Do you think there is a theme this season of sort of, I don't know, I mean, I guess everything feels a lot closer together. We talked about in the preseason, the top feels kind of close. I think Ohio State's going to be the favorite by most right now, but it feels very wide open. And it feels kind of chaotic. And it feels like we're setting up for a pretty interesting race down the stretch in October and November. Is that fair?
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. It's why it's why my favorite thing is really that college football always surprises you. Just when you think you know everything, it just automatically turns the whole thing on its head. And I'm like, oh, Utah at home, -3, line of scrimmage, they're going to win. And like, I've loved Kyle Whittingham for years, but their line of scrimmage play isn't good right now. And that Twitter money dominated for Texas Tech. And Indiana, oh my God, the computers have Indiana as the best team in the country. And my Illinois playoff talk, pretty wrong about that.
I think on Texas Tech and Utah, the thing that stood out to me was the line of scrimmage. And that's the same thing also for Nebraska and Michigan is like, I like, Raiola at Nebraska. I think he's made clear progress. Love the Holgorsen hire. It's clear that they couldn't stop the run and they couldn't protect. And so like basic Big Ten football line of scrimmage, Michigan just beat him up there. That was the same thing for Texas Tech. And I think that was kind of, we had this idea all off season that Texas Tech is spending all this money. They were so close to making the Big 12 championship game last year. Was this going to be enough to put them over the top? And you wondered, okay, are they legit? I think we found out on Saturday that they are probably at this point the front runner to win the Big 12. And I think all those additions, like you said, Bailey, Height, Lee Hunter, the defensive tackle, they all paid off in a big way for Texas Tech. So to go into Salt Lake City, win the line of scrimmage, beat Utah in the fashion that they did, even if Napier was banged up for Utah and during the week and may not have practiced, it's still a big time win for Texas Tech and proof of concept too. I think it's important for Joey McGuire.
You think they're automatically better than Iowa State?
I think they are. I think they're the favorite.
Okay.
You like Iowa State?
I don't know. I'm not saying I do because I'm wrong about everything, but I am just saying everyone's just going to conveniently forget about the Cyclones because that's what people do to Matt Campbell's football team. They just always forget. Oh, wait a second. That Iowa State team is pretty good.
I agree with you. They've got a pretty favorable path to the Big 12 championship game. Let's on Texas Tech, and I don't think they'll go undefeated, but their toughest road game the rest of the way is Arizona State. They have some tricky road trips like Houston coming up, Kansas State, and West Virginia. I think there's a good chance that they're going to be sitting there at double-digit wins at the end of the year. So I think my question going into that game was like, is this legit? Like, yes, I think that's the answer. For Indiana, I think it's not surprising to me that they won. It's the fact that they won 63 10. I think that's the most surprising
Yeah.
thing. And also the way that they dominated the line of scrimmage. We knew Illinois had some questions. We talked about it last week, held them to 2 rushing yards, and they also picked up 7 sacks. And Fernando Mendoza was awesome. So they won the line of scrimmage. Mendoza was awesome.
Special teams.
Yeah. I mean,
like
everything.
Total domination.
I mean, Cignetti had a point to prove on Saturday night, and they delivered it.
Yeah, they did. All right. So, one more thing about Michigan. You look at Michigan's schedule. I'm not suggesting that they're good enough to be a playoff team, like just plain and simple. But you look at that schedule, and if they play like they did against Nebraska, and even like kind of against Oklahoma, like they're gonna win most of the games that they have on their schedule.
Yeah, I think Michigan is a dangerous team, and I think the scary thing, if you're USC coming up on the schedule, Washington or Ohio State, I mean, suddenly Maryland the week before Ohio State looks a lot tougher. I think the scary thing is Michigan can get better because of Bryce Underwood. And I think we saw that, like, from the Oklahoma game to the Nebraska game, they allowed him to do a little bit more offensively. And their offensive line can continue to get better. We saw they pounded Nebraska. I mean, I think there's a good chance that Michigan's right there in the playoff at the end of the season, especially if Underwood continues to progress.
I mean, the 4 games before Ohio State are Michigan State, Purdue, Northwestern, and Maryland. I mean, those are 2 of the worst power conference teams, and Michigan State and Maryland. They get Washington at home, Wisconsin at home. We'll find out about Washington. That point spread against Ohio State's going down. Really, really explosive offensive weapons on that Washington team. Super fun to watch, but I don't know. At USC, also, USC seems totally rejuvenated and reinvigorated. Lots of offensive weapons. Not sure how good they are either. We'll find out about them a little bit more this weekend on the road against Illinois. So we're going to find out about USC and Washington, but other than that, it's really just the Ohio State game with a couple other swing games, and that's it for Michigan. So, man, oh man, oh man. A couple of quick great games from last weekend I just want to point out. We could talk Auburn and Oklahoma here because, look, it was not a felony. It was not a felonious stealing of the game, as message boards like to say from the referees, but it was like petty theft. The SEC, of course, has come out and said, no, you cannot try to fake run off the field and then sprint down the sideline and catch touchdown passes. That was just the wrong call. There was also a bad pass interference call that was wrong. I don't like blaming refs. You know me. I don't do that. Again, not a felony, but maybe like a misdemeanor from the officials in the Auburn-Oklahoma game. I do think Jackson Arnold has to throw the football. Like, you got to throw the football, dude. And Oklahoma does look like the better team, but that was a closer game than I think. That was a pretty evenly matched game, and I think the refs, I don't know if they cost the game or not. If I'm an Auburn fan, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, but Hugh Freeze was right. It was not a well-called game, and if I'm an Auburn fan, I'm upset. But also, like, block our Mason Thomas. You know, tell Jackson Arnold to get rid of the football. Like, come on, guys. You got to,
I think 2 things are true. We like to say it a lot on the show. You can be angry about the refs because the officiating was terrible. I mean, there was the receiver in the end zone is like getting run into. There's no flag. And certainly the play where they scored, obviously, it's pretty clear when the SEC puts out a statement that there's some wrongdoing.
That is just an illegal play. You cannot do that.
Right. So I understand. Totally fine to be upset about the refs. There's also, they got great field position because of bad special teams play. They couldn't block. Jackson Arnold standing in the end zone for reasons unknown to take forever to throw the ball a couple times. I mean, there's 100 things and it happened in a game. And certainly had that play not happened, next play would have happened differently. Who knows? But Auburn also cost itself the game by these mistakes. Like, they could have game planned better. They had a 44-yard rush, and somehow they decided to just not run the ball again after that, it seemed like. So there was a lot of things that, like I said, 2 things are true. The officiating sucks, and we can demand better from every conference. Yeah. But also, Auburn could have played better too.
I think that's fair. Really loved the Arizona State Baylor game. There's like the 4th quarter showdown. You got Arizona State down by 1, 3rd and 13 on like their own 10-yard line. And Levitt just hits a total bomb down the middle. The South Carolina Missouri game was super fun. It just like 8 lead changes back and forth. super fun and interesting. And then there's North Carolina. Bill Belichick has lost 82-23 to the two Big 12 teams he's faced, UCF, or Central, as he says, and TCU. Wow, North Carolina, bad football team.
It's been all downhill since that opening series against TCU. You know, like before the game, there was all this hype about Belichick's arrival, all these, you know, big time presence of North Carolina alums were there. They go out and score in the first drive against TCU and thought, oh, maybe we got something here. And ever since then, it has been all downhill. I mean, they beat Charlotte and beat Richmond. Great. This is I go back to what we talked about in the preseason. I think this roster is not great. And I have my doubts about Belichick and the staff at the college level.
You were talking 8 wins. Look how easy their schedule is. 8 wins.
Schedule.
8 wins.
Yeah, it was all a schedule argument. And they still have to play Stanford, Syracuse, Virginia, Cal. Suddenly Clemson looks a lot more vulnerable. I don't think they're going to a bowl game at this point, though. I just think they're just not good enough to get to 6 wins.
All right. G5 race. AAC had a lot of action this past weekend. Of course, Tulane destroyed by Ole Miss. Just really impressive showing by Ole Miss along the line of scrimmage. Just totally beat up on Tulane. That is a physical Tulane football team and still could be the best Group of 5 team. And Ole Miss punked them. Very impressive showing. They will host LSU this weekend. Memphis, as we mentioned, with the comeback win over Arkansas at home. Super interesting and fun there. USF back on the winning after losing to Miami last week. They're 3-1. And North Texas with an overtime win over Army, now 4-0. So those 4 teams really balanced at the top of the AAC. I cannot see a team from another league coming out and challenging for the G5 spot in the playoff, because those 4 and maybe some others in this league could be so good that the schedules might actually be pretty decent in the AAC. And we talked about it at the beginning of the year. It's a much more interesting race. The second that Boise State outcome happened with South Florida, this entire race was flipped on its head. And a win over Arkansas for Memphis on the road, or excuse me, at home, is a nice feather in the cap, even if Arkansas ends up being bad. Still a big-time win. And watch out for that North Texas Mean Green defense, baby.
Yeah, North Texas sitting here at 4-0. They, destroyed Washington State. They picked up a good win going up to Army last week. Also, Navy. You mentioned, Memphis, South Florida, Tulane, North Texas. Don't forget about Navy in this mix. I think you're 100% right, though, about where the G5 spot is headed. Boise gets Notre Dame coming up. If they could pull off an upset, maybe we're talking something different here. I just think and also throw UNLV. They're undefeated. They've got a good win over, I guess, UCLA being a power conference team. But it feels like all of the power is in the American this year. And just with how many good teams there are, they're going to be the representative of the G5.
And probably capable of winning a game, whatever that matchup might be. So keep an eye on all that. We mentioned Memphis last week had the moment in full force. So I'm curious. We can talk about these big games, but I'm curious. You got Colorado plus 6.5 at home over BYU. That's a ranked opponent on the road. You've got Mississippi State hosting Tennessee. 7.5-point dog at home. Iowa, that's a fascinating game with Indiana. The matchups, the physicality. Iowa has all these fun, quirky players and a quarterback that sometimes is good and sometimes isn't. Plus 7.5 there, but for Iowa at home, we'll talk about Washington in just a second. Arkansas, 4-point favorite or 4-point underdog at home against Notre Dame. And then we'll talk about Illinois as well. They're an underdog. You got Virginia, only a 7-point dog at home against Florida State, a top 10 team. Why? It's the point spread. Anthony Pondexter and Warwick Dunn are not walking through that door. What are we doing? That point spread on Friday night was alarming to me. So what do you think? Any upsets any home upsets where the moment is in play and the fan base storms the field and we exercise some demons?
Doesn't Iowa as a 7.5 point underdog that number seems too high? Just especially Indiana's coming off the big win to Illinois. We also know that top-ranked teams go to Kinnick Stadium and struggle, so I would not be stunned at all if Iowa plays well, or I guess plays well and wins. Mississippi State's also interesting because they're at home and they've already knocked off Arizona State. I am curious, in Tennessee coming off the loss to Georgia, they beat UAB. They've had a couple weeks to kind of regroup. Mississippi State looks a lot better on defense than they were last season. And I think just seeing how Tennessee's defense had a lot of injuries up front in the secondary. Now you got to play Mississippi State where it's not easy in Starkville. That one is definitely on my radar. I will say Arkansas kind of feels like the last stand maybe for Sam Pittman. And just looking, the buyout's kind of structured kind of in a weird way where it's better for him to keep losing and they get rid of him later.
It's about his record since like COVID, right? Versus like FBS opponents. Like if he's 500 or below, buyout goes way down, something like that.
It's a little confusing, but I think they owe more money right now if he's fired. If they wait a few weeks and they keep losing, it drops a couple million and in theory saves the school a couple bucks.
Yep, there you go. All right, let's go to the big ones here. Ohio State. This is what's interesting about these 4 big games, but like all of these teams kind of off last week, relatively. I don't mean like off, but like you know what I mean. And obviously Washington kind of had a battle with Washington State, maybe more than we expected. But Ohio State at Washington, 2:30. Also, I know you're going to hate this. You do have the USC-Illinois game at 11, but that feels like an appetizer relative to Ohio State at Washington, 2:30. LSU at Ole Miss, also 2:30. And I know you're happy about this. Oregon at Penn State, 6:30. Alabama at Georgia, 6:30 at the exact same time. Boo.
We could do better than this. It's embarrassing.
You know how many NFL players are going to be in those 2 night games?
Yeah.
I mean, the number of first-round picks off of the Georgia, Alabama, Penn State, and Oregon teams it's insane. I mean, there's probably 6 or 7 players for each of those 4 teams that think that they could be first-round pick. It's crazy.
That's a great point. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, I'm just thinking, like preseason All-America teams. I mean, certainly with Singleton and, Aller was in the discussion. He could be a first-round pick next year. Oregon's roster is loaded, of course, Georgia and Alabama too. So in general, I think there is certainly for Oregon and Penn State, there's a little bit of like, I'm interested just to see exactly where these teams are. But to your point, there's just a ton of talent on the field in those 2 games.
I want to start with Oregon and Penn State. First of all, not the least of which is I want to see Kenyon Sadiq just do what he does in the open field. He's like their Tyler Warren, and I want to see how they use him because he is so good. I am fascinated. Like, I think this game carries more weight than the Georgia-Alabama game. Maybe there's a lot of weight on this because Bama already has a loss, and 2 losses put you real close to the edge here with some big games still looming for the Crimson Tide. And Georgia only a 2.5-point favorite at home tells you that the Alabama resurgence with Ty Simpson and the efficiency and that talent has sort of figured itself out. Penn State only a 3.5-point favorite at home. Oregon probably ahead of schedule in its quote-unquote rebuild from last year. I was thinking about this with Indiana. Like, Fernando Mendoza might be better than Curtis Rourke. I think you probably would agree with that.
I would agree. Yeah.
Could you make the case that Dante Moore has been better than Dylan Gabriel?
Not yet.
Okay.
And this gets at kind of what I was hinting at earlier is Montana State, Oklahoma State, Northwestern, and Oregon State. Those are all bad teams.
Fair.
And that's what I'm curious about is Moore has looked great, but Saturday night at Penn State against Penn State's defense is really going to tell us a lot about how far along he is. So I wouldn't go there yet. If you want to argue maybe his upside is higher, I would agree with that.
Okay. Like ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
You mentioned Oregon State. Didn't they get destroyed by Texas Tech 2 weeks ago?
Yes, they did.
Is there a better this just hit me. Is there a better illustration of the financial dynamics of college football than Oregon State being left behind in the Pac-2, losing to Texas Tech and Oregon, the 2 teams that probably spend more money on their rosters than anybody else? Poor Beavers.
I think Oregon State is 1-11 in its last 12 games.
All right, I didn't mean to rub in the salt in the wound there, but like that just hit me. Okay. Oregon, I want to see the weaponry. I want to see the defense. They got some, like, these guys, again, the NFL talent. I don't even think that I have a lot of analysis for either of these 2 games. I think Ty Simpson could be better than Milroe. I think Stockton has so far been better than Beck. I think Moore could end up being better than Gabriel, which is a lot higher bar to clear. that's just an incredible thing to say about those teams and playing in those two nightcaps that I will hopefully be able to sit down and watch.
I think the biggest point of intrigue for me is we talked about the opponents for Oregon so far, and they've been pretty light. And the same thing is true for Penn State, Nevada, FIU, and Villanova.
Right. Who are they?
So we think both teams are pretty good, but we'll find out a lot on Saturday night. I thought Drew Aller's been a little inconsistent in some of their games so far. I like the receivers they brought into the portal, pretty clear. They've made an impact. But against Oregon, this will tell us more. Also, you kind of have to get a little bit into the weeds on this and kind of had to watch Oregon to the first 4 games. They are 72nd in the country in rush defense success rate.
That's not good.
Northwestern had some success. The other teams had a little bit here and there. I say that because here comes Nick Singleton. Here comes K-Tron Allen. Yeah. And those 2 running backs at times off to a little bit of a slow start this year, but this might be the game. At home, you got Oregon's defense that could have some issues, and that opens up Aller in the passing game. So I think we're going to find out a lot about Penn State. We're going to find out a lot about Oregon, Dante Moore, and Drew Aller. So there is a ton on the table here, and what is just a massive Big Ten showdown.
I like Georgia at home. I like, for some reason, I like Oregon.
I like Penn State.
I'm not gambling on this one because I was so wrong about everything last week, but I would take Oregon plus the 3.5, and I would take Georgia minus the 2.5. That's what I would do.
I like Georgia at home.
I think at home they can kind of buckle down a little bit and play a tight game the way Kirby likes to play and pop in the Florida State tape and go after Ty Simpson.
I was going to say, I think if I'm Georgia, they had 55 rushing attempts against Tennessee. And I'm going, Alabama really had trouble stopping the run against Florida State. Now, it looks like Tim Keenan, their best defensive lineman, is going to be back on Saturday, which is a big deal for the rush defense. But I suspect that you will see a lot of the run game for Georgia, Gunnar Stockton on the move. Yeah. Ty Simpson has been locked in the last 2 games for Alabama. It's like he can't miss. And so we just saw Tennessee have success in the air. And here comes Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, Isaiah Horton, these receivers for Alabama.
Chris Brazzell cooked that secondary, and Bernard and Williams are better than Brazzell. Not by much, but they're better.
Yeah, and also just think about how this game sets up. Alabama being an underdog. I mean, not too many times have we been able to say, Alabama's getting the disrespect card here, but Georgia's had trouble beating Alabama too. So it's kind of a chance, like, considering how great last year's game was in Tuscaloosa, I think we're in for another good one. But I think Georgia beats Alabama and does enough to slow Ty Simpson to do that.
Ohio State at Washington. That point spread's gone from like 10 down to 8.5. Obviously, it's a long road trip. Obviously, Williams and Boston and the running back, like that whole Washington offense is filled with really fun, electric players. Just enjoy it. The chess match against Patricia should be very interesting. Ohio State passed its first hurdle really, really easily, or not easily, but fairly easily against Texas, and they have not really been challenged since. So I am curious what you make of the matchup. I don't think Washington has the horses on defense to game plan around some of the mismatches, but man, it's going to be fun to watch when Washington has the football from a X's and O's schematic standpoint.
I think the reason that point spread is probably declining is just simply looking at what Washington has done. Damon Williams, there's a lot of firepower here. It's in Seattle. Ohio State hasn't played Washington as a Big Ten team in Seattle. So it's kind of a weird road trip for Ohio State. But I think you nailed it there. And I think that's what I'm watching. Number one, Damon Williams against Ohio State's defense. Ohio State's defense shut down Texas in week 1. What does Patricia and this staff throw at Washington's offense on Saturday? Then I think there is a question of how can Washington slow down Ohio State's offense? Because we haven't really talked about Julian Sayin a whole lot this year, but he has been very good. And all the weapons that Ohio State has, Washington, one of their best corners, Takario Davis, his status is a little bit up in the air. Not great when you're playing Jeremiah Smith and the receivers for Ohio State. So I think, to your point, like the moment, like the crowd, the home field advantage. DeMond Williams could create some problems here, but Ohio State's deeper and they're just probably better across the board. And so maybe Washington kind of makes it interesting, but the Buckeyes pull away late.
Picks against the spread for me. I've got Ohio State minus the 8. Once it's down to 8, I'm taking the 8 or 8.5. LSU is getting a 1.5 on the road. Ole Miss was impressive, but they're still playing a backup quarterback, and LSU's defense is real salty. Am I just missing the fact? Like, is Ole Miss just far better than I think, and LSU's not? Like, LSU's very tested at this point, and they have a lot of pieces. And eventually, you have to think the offense will come to life. So I like LSU plus the 1.5. You get it at 2, that'd be even better.
I was a little surprised they were an underdog. I think there's a couple.
Means Vegas knows something. Damn it.
There's a couple things. I think number one, we probably should look at that week 1 game against Clemson with maybe a little more skepticism. Now, there is the idea too that Clemson lost 2 games and maybe they kind of mailed it in a little bit against Syracuse, kind of like what Florida State did last year after they had the early season losses. How do you feel about Trinidad Chambliss versus Austin Simmons? What would you do?
I mean, he ran the ball all over the place last week. Chambliss did. How healthy is Austin Simmons?
That's the question. I think you got to ride Chambliss for now.
Yeah, I think you do too. Because he came in end of the Kentucky game.
Yeah,
and was pretty good.
And he started the last 2 games, and he's been great against Arkansas, which their defense is not very good.
I think you got to roll with Chambliss at this point.
I think the danger of putting Simmons out there is maybe he's not 100%. He gets hurt, and then coming up in October, you've got Georgia, you got Oklahoma, you got South Carolina. Chambliss gives you a little bit more of a running threat right now. Great story from Ferris State. And Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. have done a great job of building the offense and getting him ready. But I look at this game and see, man, LSU's defense. We could, even if we think Clemson might be a little bit, that win might be overrated, this defense is still one of the better groups in the country. And Nussmeier and LSU's offense started to look like the LSU offense I think we thought we would see. Now, granted, it's Southeastern Louisiana last week. It did look better, though. So this game has been great the last 2 years, so I'm expecting another close one on Saturday.
Totally new piece of analysis and dynamic to a game that you and I have never had to break down before. Intimate knowledge between the head coach, Lane Kiffin, and the middle linebacker, Whit Weeks, for LSU.
Yes.
Who is dating Lane Kiffin's daughter. Man, oh man, oh man. That's an awkward family dinner no matter what happens.
Interesting week to hard launch.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's no coincidence that the week they are playing Ole Miss, he is announcing to the world that he's dating Lane Kiffin's daughter.
Lane is a mastermind at mind games, so there could
trolling.
be
Trolling though by the linebacker at LSU. That is a dangerous time to announce that.
Can't wait,
especially in offense, especially going up against an Ole Miss offense where all they want to do is put linebackers in conflict all the time.
Right. Yeah, Lane could be extra spicy after the game if they win this one.
I just don't know if either of those 2 Ole Miss quarterbacks have played against a defense like this. Like, none of them have seen this. This is way better than anything they've seen. So I'll take LSU plus the points.
Ole Miss also defensively, I don't think they're as good as they were last year.
Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, USC at Illinois. I can't get what I just saw out of my mind, though. So I guess I have to pick USC to go on the road and win.
I like USC as well. I do think there could be a little bit of a bounce back factor for Illinois here. USC is not as probably, they're actually 124th in the country in defensive success rate against the run. I was going to say, their schedule, and they beat Michigan State late last week on the road at Illinois, probably their toughest assignment so far. So I could see Illinois bouncing back, but I like USC at home here, especially with Illinois, some of the injuries they've had in the secondary. It's not great when you're playing a USC offense that's number 1 in the country in offensive success rate.
Also, a lot of home ranked teams with small point spreads here. Arizona at Iowa State, only a 6.5 point spread there. for the Cyclones. Auburn at Texas A&M is a fantastic football game in the SEC. That one's down to 6.5 as well. You've got, as I mentioned, Arizona State 2.5-point favorite against TCU at home on Friday night. That's a really juicy one in the Big 12. Vandy's ranked their heavy favorite in their game against Utah State, so they'll win that one. But otherwise, you look at the top 25 ranked teams. Georgia Tech's a 2-touchdown favorite on the road against Wake Forest. I mean, other than that, almost every single top 25 game is a single-digit point spread. So we could have a really, really fun weekend of college football.
I think it's going to be awesome. I mean, if you make a list of like the top 10 to 15 games, it's loaded. It's not only just having the showdowns between Oregon and Penn State, Georgia, Alabama, but there's a lot of depth this weekend too. So I hate to use the shake up Saturday or showdown Saturday terms, but it really our rankings and everything could look a lot different come Monday, given all these games this weekend.
Again, why is Virginia only a 6.5, 7-point underdog at home to a top 10 Florida State team?
I think there's two reasons. Number one, Castellanos for Florida State got banged up against Kent State. I think it's likely that he plays, so maybe there could be a little bit of caution on bettors. Also, I do think Virginia is better. Friday night in Charlottesville, a Virginia team that's better could make this interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
3-1 Virginia. Sorry.
That's true. That's true. Let's see. You got Houston at Oregon State. You got Louisville, Pittsburgh, Duke at Syracuse. That's a really interesting one there between Coach K and Jim Boeheim. Cincinnati at Kansas. Baylor at Oklahoma State. Baylor reeling after the way they lost that game at home last week. Utah, West Virginia. Oh my God, Cal. We're never going to say anything nice about you again. We did our whole first segment on Cal on JKS, and now 34-0 to San Diego State. What are we doing? They play Boston College on the road. Boston College, 6-point favorite there. UCLA and Northwestern. OMG. Wow.
Cal with the very interesting road trip from Berkeley to Chestnut Hill. That's a long way to be playing a conference game. So yeah, I suspect Cal will bounce back. They kind of had some bad luck in that San Diego State game, but yes, that is
you can't bad luck your way to a 34-0 loss. Virginia Tech at NC State, Kentucky at South Carolina, the old Beamer Stoops rivalry, a little under the radar with all the losses.
The Sunglasses Bowl, yes.
Sunglasses Bowl. Any non-ranked teams really stand out to you in terms of games and matchups you want to discuss? That Baylor Oklahoma State game is interesting. You got Rutgers at Minnesota. That's an interesting one as well.
It's the PJ Fleck Bowl there. This ties to both those teams. I think got my eye on a couple G5 games and kind of like Memphis at Florida Atlantic on Saturday, just because Memphis coming off the big win. Florida Atlantic can at least score some points. Can Memphis avoid the trap game there? Also, Liberty at Old Dominion. Liberty kind of quietly struggling this year. Old Dominion, Colton Joseph, one of the breakout stars at quarterback this season. Of course, last time we saw Old Dominion, they were helping Brent Pry pack his bags in Blacksburg. And late on, it's not late, it's 6:30 Central, Boise State hosting App State. Just two of the better G5 programs in recent years, obviously. I think App State is almost looks like 16-point underdog here, as Boise State looks to kind of continue to move on from the loss to South Florida and try to fight their way back into that playoff mix. They get Notre Dame coming up too. So would like to see Boise up close here and against App State.
Are we starting to see why I have been saying for years why power conference teams in the Southeast have passed on Jamie Chadwell?
I think you're right for right now, but that doesn't explain being good at Liberty to start and also at Coastal Carolina and the other jobs.
Hugh Freeze built Liberty. I would say the reason Coastal Carolina was good, his name is Grayson McCall.
Well, he also played a part in recruiting and developing an offense for him too.
I'm just saying. There was all this talk. Tennessee Volunteers should hire Jamie Chadwell. The South Carolina Gamecocks should hire Jamie Chadwell. And I'm always like, guys, they know him better than anybody, and they all said no. I think we're starting to see why.
He went 35-14 at Charleston Southern. 21-14 at North Greenville.
How many times were they on probation at Charleston Southern?
They went to the FCS playoffs 2 times. I mean,
I'm just saying
he's a winner. He's won pretty much everywhere. He's 22-8 at Liberty. They're off to a slow start this year. They've had problems with quarterbacks and turnovers so far. Like, I get it.
Liberty is not a winner this year. Just so you know, they're 1-3.
They are struggling. Okay. And by the way, coming up, we got Conference USA games on Tuesday.
With losses to powerhouses Jacksonville State, Bowling Green, and James Madison. So, James Madison pretty good.
James Madison's good. Bowling Green, Jacksonville State losses are confusing. Yeah.
Just say he might not be as good as the coaching hot boards thought he was in 2022 or whatever it was.
I had him on the hot board for Virginia Tech. So.
That's my official high-end highbrow analysis.
Yeah. I figured you would appreciate that one.
All right, picks against the spread. You went 1-2 last week. I went 2-3 because of the freaking Oklahoma safety. I would have had my first winning week, and instead on the last play of the freaking game, not that anyone's upset about it or anything, R. Mason Thomas just Jackson Arnold, just throw the freaking football, dude. Just throw the ball, man. Like at any point during the game, they had to the NCAA had to look at the broadcast and be like, you were too hard on Jackson Arnold. we went from 10 sacks to 9.
Yeah.
That safety killed me, dude. I was like, oh, we got the cover. All right, I'm gonna go 3-2. Nope. I went 2-3, so I'm 7-9. You went 1-2, so you are 7-9. You get to go first. You went G5 and it didn't pay off, my guy.
Well, it looked pretty good because Buffalo was handling Troy 17-0 before they ended up losing 21-17. So we were that close. We were 1 quarter away.
Close doesn't count, man.
Right.
Doesn't count.
You mentioned the Oklahoma thing. I wonder if anybody had large money on the Oklahoma Auburn game and the Eagles and Rams. It had like the most painful betting into any weekend you could possibly have. What
was the point spread in the Eagles Rams game?
Like 3.5.
So the Rams were plus 3.5 on the road. They were down by 1, and they had a chance to kick an easy field goal. And Jordan Davis, the fastest big man touchdown I've ever seen in my life.
Oh,
okay.
man.
Right. Well, how about this? No matter what I do in picks against the spread, no matter how much money I lose, it's not going to be as bad as what the Green Bay Packers offense did in Cleveland on Sunday. So
yeah, sorry about that.
GTFOH. All right.
Let's maybe pick some winners this week.
Okay, fine.
And let's see if we can't get back on track. I like Kansas. The next head coach of the Wisconsin Badgers, Lance Leipold, in Kansas, they are a 5.5 point favorite over Cincinnati.
Oh, I got them at 4.5.
Well, 4.5 then. We'll go
on my betting app. On my betting app.
Even better. I like it even more. So give me the Jayhawks to cover against Cincinnati.
Okay.
I am going to, I guess, be the sucker here. I am going to take Iowa as they are a 7.5 point dog.
I got that one. I got that one also at 7.5. This is bad that we're agreeing on this stuff.
And I will take
Indiana. Kirk Cincinnati laughs at our bets. He just laughs at us.
He's probably Googling like who doubts him this week.
I was gonna give up 21 tackles for loss.
This is not one of the better Iowa defenses, I think. So that they gave up a lot of passing yards to Rutgers last week. So we'll see. This may be a bad play.
Can they block? Can Iowa block? I think they can. So we'll see.
I think their offensive line's a lot better than Illinois.
Okay, well, I got those. I got those 2 as well. I got Kansas minus 4.5, Iowa plus 7.5. Who else you got?
I'm gonna take South Carolina 6.5 over Kentucky.
Okay, I like that.
And I think I will call it there. Try to go 3-0 this week.
Okay. South Carolina, what do you got? Minus? It's minus 6.5 at home, right?
Yes.
Minus 6.5 at home. Okay, you're good there. I'm going to take Ohio State minus 8.5 on the road. I think that it's a great matchup when Washington has the ball. I think it's a bad matchup when Ohio State has the ball. I think Washington is going to be really good this year. They're going to be fun, but I think this is a different class of football team. So give me Ohio State minus the 8.5. And I'm going to take LSU plus the 1.5. I just think they win the game outright. But now that I've considered the Lane Kiffin Weeks angle, I don't love it. but I already had a few dollars down on it. Those were my picks before coming into the game, or into the show. So I like Utah minus 12.5 against West Virginia, but I just I'm too hurt by the Utah Utes to go back to the well just yet.
I don't know if this makes your decision any easier, but there was a lengthy injury report given out by Rich Rodriguez, and it could be like quarterback, running back, offensive lineman. In other words,
West Virginia is not good.
No, they are not.
They're not. Good. They're not.
They're very, very fortunate to probably come back and beat Pitt a few weeks ago. Yeah.
I just now noticed this. How about NC State is a 10.5 point favorite over Virginia Tech? Brutal.
Duke being only a 4.5 point favorite over Syracuse caught my attention, especially with Ricky Collins starting at quarterback for Syracuse this week.
Yeah, but they're they're playing well right now. I'm double checking that line. 5.5. You can get Duke minus 5.5 on the road against Cuse. Georgia Tech minus 14. I like that one too, but I'm not picking any of those. I'm taking Kansas, Iowa, LSU, and Ohio State. Those are my 4. All right. I'm sure I'll go 2-2 again.
Just keep hovering around 500 here.
All right. Where can people watch the show, Stephen?
You can watch us on YouTube, Athlon U, and you can also check us out at athlonsports.com for all of your college football articles, predictions, previews, everything you need for the weekend. Also, I embed the video in all of our articles, so come check us out.
There you go. You can follow him all over the internet at Athlon Steven. You can read all his stuff, Athlon Sports. Buy a magazine on a newsstand or the website, athlonsports.com. You can follow me all over the interwebs as well at Braden Gall. Have a great week number 5, everybody. It goes fast, so enjoy it. For Steven, I'm Braden. We'll talk to you next time.